All right, welcome to topic 6 of 7. You are almost done and out of here. Make sure if you have any missing or late assignments, please reach out to me. Let's get them reassigned so that you can submit them for full credit opportunities. This week, you're looking at the 20th century, wars and depression. So President Wilson in 1914, he was like, no way, no how, very isolationist in his foreign policy. We're not getting involved in World War I. At the time, it was called the Great War. Nobody imagined we would have a World War II. And President Wilson in 1919, in 1914, he says, no dice. 1917, rolls the dice. We're in the war. 1919, he helps try to construct peace. The Treaty of Versailles is the formal ending of World War I. President Wilson has a several-point speech, many ideas for how to have peace, how to prevent this from ever happening again. Again, it was called the Great War. It was not World War I at the time when it happened. It didn't become World War I until we had World War II, which starts happening in the 30s. We obviously don't get involved until Pearl Harbor bombs us in 1941, and then it's very much a world war. But getting back to President Wilson, he wanted to create, he did propose creating a League of Nations. But his own Senate would not vote to join it. And without the United States, it's thought that is part of why the League of Nations crumbled. Then at the end of World War II, we see the United Nations, and we know that, we're familiar with that because we hear about it today. It's still around today. The United States joined as a major participant in the UN. It is a lasting organization. So you're looking at President Wilson. Why did he change his mind in your response to discussion question 1? Then discussion question 2, President Truman had not been the president very long when he had to decide to use the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. President Roosevelt had passed, I think, in April of 1945. President Truman at the time was his vice president. When President Roosevelt passed, then President Truman is launched into being the president and has very hard decisions to make. Were they right or wrong? It is thought by some that one of the benefits to Truman having used the bombs, I mean, obviously they were they just decimated everything. And not just right then. That damage lasts for decades in some respects. However, some people say that he was right in doing that because it showed the total annihilation of nuclear war. And after World War II, what we see is the Cold War. And it is thought that both Russia, the USSR, and the United States, understanding the total destruction nuclear warfare would bring on humanity, is part of the reason the Cold War stayed cold and didn't become hot, with weapons. Although it was hot in places. Like, we were essentially fighting the USSR and China during the war in Korea. We were essentially fighting the USSR and China in Vietnam. So it was hot, but behind the scenes hot. We never go nuclear against each other. And it's thought that because they understood the destruction, where had those bombs not been used in Japan in 1945, we may not have understood the destruction. So that's food for thought, but you're looking at why that decision was made to bomb them. And then you're looking at, for your assignment this week, you're looking at war and depression. So you're looking at the Great Depression and some of its consequences, some of the events that exacerbated it. You're looking at the New Deal policies. So President Hoover was the president when the Great Depression really kicks off. And he tried to have policies to help, lessen the consequences and effects. He failed. President Roosevelt comes in and nobody has any hope. People are not working. The banks are failing. That's what's thought to have ruined the South for the Civil War. I mean, other than they were on the totally wrong side of right and wrong. They were on the side of wrong. But it's thought that the total war strategy of the Civil War just ripped hope from the South. And that's what we see in the Depression. It's not during a war, but nobody has hope. And when you lose hope, then you're very, very weak. And so President Roosevelt comes in and he inspires hope. The New Deal has many unintended consequences. The size of government morphs into more like what we have today. It becomes huge because as you have these programs, somebody has to oversee the funding, somebody has to oversee the distribution, but people were put to work. Work is one of the best things you can do with your life, is to work, to have purpose, to have a goal. You need to get to work. In the Bible, it says the desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. You need to be setting goals and working to achieve them. And when you don't have that, you're just hopeless. And it just makes you weak. And sometimes, today we make terrible decisions. In the Great Depression, it was just devastating. So President Roosevelt comes in, rolls out these programs, these New Deal programs, and he gives hope. And he's criticized because they really grew the size of government. They grew our dependence on government. But I praise him for the hope that he gave, because I think that strengthened America just in time to get ready for World War II. So then you're looking at the World War II economy during the war. After the war, we're going to see this huge boost. But during the war, you're also looking at different gender roles. Many women did not work outside of the home. And then World War II hits, all of the men are off to war. Women are taking factory jobs. You see Rosie the Riveter, other inspiring women going to work. So gender roles really shift during this time too. All right, so that's topic 6. Enjoy and reach out with questions and reach out to have assignments reassigned so you can finish strong. All right, bye.